Good morning, everybody. So let us move on to the next part of the mergers and acquisition. Okay. We are moving to the unit 5 according to your syllabus. It is unit number 5, that is takeover defenses. So far in mergers and acquisition, we studied what is mergers, what are acquisitions, we have studied the types, we've studied why it is necessary for mergers, what are the problems in mergers, all. Then we went on to study the strategic perspective of mergers and acquisition, where we studied the SWOT analysis, Porter's 5 force model, so on and so forth. Then we also studied the different types of corporate restructuring, where we studied limited liability partnership or management buyouts, etc. Then joint ventures, etc., etc. In the last module, we tried to study the merger process, how merger happens, then what is due diligence, and we also tried to study the integration process, merger integration process. Now let us move on to the next part, that is takeover defenses. Now takeover defenses means if a particular company, okay, a predator, we call it as normally a predator, wants to take over another company forcefully, it is called as a takeover or a hostile takeover. Okay, and if the company wants to defend, if the target company wants to defend itself, it is called as takeover defenses. So we are going to study this particular part in two units, this unit into two parts, that is part 1 of takeover defenses, and the next video would be part 2. We understand what is takeover defenses. So defenses can take a form of general wall building to make firm less attractive to the raiders. Raiders are the predators who wants to take over the company. So it is basically creating a wall around the target company or around the company, so that the predators or the raiders don't take over your company. So this includes asset ownership restructuring, anti-takeover, character amendments, adoption of poison pills, right plans, etc., etc. So what are the different types of takeover defenses? There are 4 major types, okay, of takeover defenses, under which there are many more. Okay, that is financial defense measures, coercive offers and defenses. Coercive is nothing but forceful offers or defenses. Anti-takeover amendments, okay, to prevent takeovers. You have some amendments that you do in your characters or in your rules, that is called as anti-takeover amendments. And poison pill defenses. So these are specific defenses that are available to protect your company from takeover, a hostile takeover. So let's try to understand this one by one. First is defensive measures. Under financial defensive measures, again there are around 5 types, that is general considerations, adjustments in asset and ownership structure, leverage recapitalization, golden parachutes, and poison puts. So let us understand these financial defense measures one by one. First, considerations. So what is a general consideration? It is possible to identify the characteristics that make a firm desirable candidate for acquisition from the acquirer's point of view. So it is very easy to find out why a particular acquirer or a raider wants to acquire your company. The factors, the following may be the factors that are vulnerable to takeover, okay, that makes the takeover possible or that makes your firm attractive. First one is low stock price. Your stock prices are very low than your cost of assets or than your assets. Then you have highly liquid balance sheet. There is a lot of cash in your balance sheet, there is a lot of securities, and there is basically your balance sheet is highly liquid. Then good cash flows, your cash flows are very attractive or they are very good relative to current stock prices. Then subsidiaries or properties which could be sold off without significantly impairing the cash flow. So you have a lot of properties and subsidiaries that can be sold without affecting the cash flows. Then relatively small stock holdings under the control of incumbent management. The management has a control of a small portion of the shares of the company, and a combination of these factors can simultaneously make the firm attractive investment opportunity for facilitating its financing. So all these things may be the reason why your firm becomes attractive for a takeover. So what we have to do to avoid this? First one is debt should be increased. Increase the loans in your capital structure with borrowed funds with and to repurchase the equity. Thus management percentage holdings will using up debt capacity. Then dividend on remaining shares should be increased. Whatever dividends you were supposed to pay on the remaining shareholders, increase those dividends. Security portfolio should be liquidated. That means whatever liquid cash you have, whatever liquid securities that you have, sell it off and withdraw the excess cash from the balance sheet. And subsidiaries which can be eliminated without impairing cash flows should be divested. So by doing all these things, that is increasing your debt, giving more dividends, then selling off the securities, liquid securities, and withdrawing the liquid cash, and setting up the securities, subsidiaries, all these things can save you from a takeover. This is called as general consideration. Move on to the next part, that is adjustment in assets and ownership structure. So we can do the adjustments in the asset and ownership structure and thus protect ourselves from a takeover. How do we do it? Purchase of asset that causes antitrust problem. You purchase those assets which causes a problem, antitrust problem. Then counter offer for control of bidder. When a bidder bids for the company, you counter offer for the control of the bidder company itself. Sale to third party of assets which made the target company, at whatever assets were there in your company which attracted the assets, which attracted the raider to take over your company, sell off those assets to the third party, get rid of those assets. Then issuance of new securities, you can issue new securities in the market, and cash purchase or sale. So all these things, all these adjustments in assets and ownership structure can save you from a. Next one is leverage recapitalization. Recapitalization means changing the structure of your capital. Leverage means taking more and more loan. So what, in simple words, what it says is you buy the shares which are outstanding by taking more and more loans. Thus what happens, there is a lot of loan in your balance sheet which makes the company not attractive or unattractive. Okay, and thus you can save yourself from a takeover. So leverage recapitalization is a relatively new technique of financial restructuring, first developed by Goldman Sachs in the year 1985. In typical recapitalization, what happens is outside shareholders receive a large one-time cash dividend, and insiders and employee benefit plans receive new share instead of cash dividends. Okay, so what do the outside shareholders get? They get a lot of dividends from the debt that was collected or the loan that was raised, and the insiders will get cash dividends. Okay, they will not get dividends, they will get new shares instead of cash dividends. Then as a result, the firm's leverage is increased because you have taken a lot of loan and given dividends, and you've taken loans and given shares to the insiders. So the loan, the debt capacity is overutilized, or you have a lot of leverage in your capital structure, which discourages takeover attempts financed mainly by borrowings against the firm's own assets. So it discourages the takeover attempts. The proportional equity ownership of management also significantly rises through the rise through recapitalization. So because of all these reasons, if you do this, and because of all these reasons, okay, of leveraged recapitalization, you save your company from a takeover. The next one, that is golden parachutes. Now the word seems to be very attractive, a golden parachute. Basically you create a parachute, okay, around the company, which saves you from the takeover. In simple words, what happens in a golden parachute is you have a separation provision for employment of an employment contract. Separation provisions of an employment contract means that when a takeover or change of control, when there is a change of control, that means the control of the company changes from one management to another management. This normally happens when there is a takeover. So when there is a takeover or when there is a change of control, the managers should be compensated heavily for the loss of their jobs. That is the main intention of this. So what happens is, the provision usually calls for lump sum payments over a specified period at full or partial rates of normal compensation, and the majority view of golden parachute now is that these control related contracts help reduce the conflict of interest between shareholders and managers in change of control situation. So basically what happens is, it becomes very difficult or very costly for the raider to take over the company, because if the raider wants to take over that particular company, it has to pay a lot of compensation to the managers for the loss of job, and which makes the bid very costly. Next one is poison puts. In bond trading, basically a bond that gives the bondholder the right to demand redemption before maturity at a high par value is in case of certain event happen. Okay, here what happens is it's relating to bonds here. Okay, so when a takeover or certain event happens, especially like a takeover or a change of control, the bondholders can redeem their bonds at a high par value. Now when they try to redeem their bonds at high par value, the raider or the bidder has to pay more money or more amount to these bondholders, again which makes the bid very costly for the bidder and thus can deter the takeover attempt. Let us move on to the okay, this is again a part of poison pits. This view is based on the fact that the right to put is triggered by the change of control. Okay, so if the right to put is basically when the right to sell, the right to redeem the bond is because of the trigger event which I have already discussed. Okay, like change of control, but in most of the cases does not apply if the change of control is friendly. Okay, exercise of the put after an unfriendly takeover can be very costly to the bidder ever when it can easily finance the required funds. So basically it becomes costly for the bidder to take over the company as it has to pay the bondholders a higher sum of money on the face value, and thus the company or the target company can defend itself from the takeover attempt. The next main defense takeover defense is the coercive offers and defenses. Okay, so first one under that we have front end loading in tender offer. Now what is this front end loading in tender offer? Let us try to understand. The pressure of coercion. Coercion is force, pressure or force. Okay, so pressure or coercion to tender arises when takeover bid is front end loaded. Okay, so what is front end loaded? That means when the offer price is greater than the price of any unpurchased share. So when the bidder or the raider is offering higher or a greater price for the unpurchased shares, then it becomes a front end loading tender offer. What are the anti-takeover defense amendments over here? An action by a firm's management to block and halt or takeover by another party. Example, anti-takeover measures like fair price amendments, staggered board. There are lots of amendments, anti-takeover amendments that a company can adopt to prevent itself from a hostile takeover. An increasingly used defense mechanism is anti-takeover amendments to firms' corporate character. And let's understand these anti-takeover amendments one by one. So these are the different types of anti-takeover amendments. The four major types of anti-takeover amendments are supermajority amendments, fair price amendments, classified boards, and authorization of preferred stock. Okay, so these are the four main anti-takeover amendments which a company can adopt or can use to prevent itself from a takeover. So let's try to understand them one by one. Supermajority amendment. Supermajority amendment means that in case of change of control or in case of any takeover, the decision should be passed by the board of directors or should be passed in a general meeting, not a board of directors, but it should be passed in a annual general meeting or a general meeting basically. So with a majority of at least 2/3 or in some cases 90%. So if 90% of the voters vote for the takeover, then only it will happen, which is highly impossible. Okay, so thus it will help the company to retain the control and avoid from a possible takeover attempt. So pure super majority provisions would seriously limit the management flexibility in takeover negotiation. We had a preferred. Also we create special types of securities, creation of securities, okay, which have special rights which can be exercised only in case of change of control or in case of any triggering activity such as change of control. Okay, offer of control. These rights take several forms but all make it difficult or costly to the acquire control of the target firm. Okay, and sometimes what happens is these special shares can also go against the management. Okay, in case those people holding these special shares try to take over the company or try to take over the management of the company. So that is why it is called as a poison pill. Though it helps to protect you from a takeover defense, it may sometimes go against you also. So we have to use these poison pills in a proper manner. Okay, so there are a lot of types of poison pills which we are going to study in the next video. Okay, so here we'll stop it, we'll end the video here. Okay, I hope you are clear with all the 4 types of defenses that we study under the takeover defenses. In the next video we are going to have the second part of takeover defenses. We're going to study some of the poison pills that are used for takeover defenses, and we are also going to study a few takeover strategies, how takeovers happen or how takeovers can be done or hostile takeovers can be effected. Thank you.